Regardless of who they played for, Cam Neely and Ulf Samuelsson never would have liked one another. It just so happened that their teams hated each other too. So by the time we got to this hit, no one minded another serving of beef. Cam Neely was a talented kid from just outside Vancouver. He got drafted 9th overall by his hometown team in 1983, but after a slow start, the Canucks traded Neely to Boston. In his first season with the Bruins, he quickly made a good impression and averaged 44 goals per season from 86-87 through 90-91. In addition to the scoring, if he didn't feel like skating around the defense, he could go right through them. The fans loved him for not shying away from contact or being afraid to drop his gloves, and the coaches loved that he led the team in scoring each of his first 5 seasons as a Bruin. He was also quick to embrace Boston's rivalry with the guys less than 2 hours away. The Hartford Whalers were disliked by the Bruins before they even entered the league. When the WHA-NHL merger was in the works, Boston attempted to block the deal and threatened to sue the league if it happened, arguing that they had territorial rights to New England. It didn't work for Boston and became the spark to a feud that grew as the Whalers got better. One of the Whalers who drew the most ire from the Bruins was Swedish defenseman Ulf Samuelsson. Drafted in 1982, Samuelsson had become one of Hartford's best defenders. And while he wasn't a major goal-scoring threat, he was a nuisance to the opposition for his physical play that even he admitted wasn't always legal. Those questionable tactics made him a marked man in Boston, especially after a run-in with Ken Linsman resulted in ligament damage to the Bruins center in '86. After that, Samuelsson got to know Neely pretty well. The pair found each other regularly in their matchups and antagonized one another when they could. Samuelsson enjoyed it because it meant Neely was focusing on him instead of scoring goals, but it also cost Ulf at times when he paid more attention to Neely than the puck. For Cam, the real annoyance came from the fact that Samuelsson wore massive shoulder pads plus a half shield, but wouldn't drop his gloves. But during the 1990-1991 season, Neely finally got that to change. On December 12th and 13th of 1990, the teams played a home-and-home. The Bruins took the first game 5-1 and had a 7-2 lead in the third period of the second matchup when Ed Kostelic caught Craig Janney with an elbow.
Right there!
Neely and the rest of the Bruins took offense. The Whalers defended themselves, and then both benches got involved. Tempers remained high, and after the Bruins added to the lead, Samuelsson finally dropped gloves and got worked by Neely.
Protect the nose, Cam. Protect the nose.
Ulf said that the next game would be interesting, but when the teams squared off again in late January, the Bruins won easily and Samuelsson didn't even take a minor. Before the guys got another chance to renew their feud, Hartford sent Samuelsson in a package to Pittsburgh, and his rivalry with the Bruins came to a close. Well, actually, hang on. Yep, the Bruins hated the Penguins also, so part 2. By leaving the Adams division to don the black and yellow, Samuelsson stepped into a rivalry that had been ignited by similar pettiness. The Bruins began their hatred for Pittsburgh when the Penguins wanted to change their team colors in order to match the Steelers and the Pirates. But Boston, being an original 6 team, felt it would infringe on the Bruins brand. The protest failed, and naturally, the teams met in the first round of the playoffs just a few months later. The Bruins took the series 3-2, but not before a Game 5 scrum featuring a rookie named Ray Bourque. From there, these teams gave us moments like Mario Lemieux taking the puck from Bourque to score his first NHL goal on his first shot during his first shift. Or in 1987, they combined for one of the last bench-clearing brawls in the NHL. But since that playoff encounter in 1980, a postseason matchup had eluded them. That is, until Ulf Samuelsson became a Penguin. That's not because he was like a missing piece or anything, it's just a convenient storytelling device. In the 1991 Prince of Wales Conference Finals, Boston and Pittsburgh faced off. Neely was coming off a 51-goal season in just 69 games. He netted another dozen through the first 13 games of the postseason. Samuelsson took note, making it his mission to keep Neely in check. They got reacquainted in the second game, sending Neely to the bench for a moment. Not long after, Cam would open the scoring with his third goal in the first 2 games, so Samuelsson's mission hadn't been too successful. The Bruins won the game in overtime and headed to Pittsburgh up 2-0, which takes us to the hit. The Bruins slowly made his way to the bench where head coach Mike Milbury went wild, breaking a stick apart as he attempted to get the referee's attention. Neely would take the ice again, plead his case, but wouldn't finish the game. He spoke afterwards about how much worse it could have been.
I could have blown my knee out and been out for the rest of the year or even longer. So, I mean, it's very, upsetting to me.
Samuelsson didn't see anything wrong with the hit, nor did he care how others felt about it. When asked about his foe, Neely added that he plays a physical game, which is fine with me. But he also plays a game I have no respect for. When confronted, he's not around too much. There are times when you've got to back yourself up. Milbury didn't hide his frustration, calling the hit part of Pittsburgh coach Bob Johnson's strategy and making it clear that he had full intention of matching that mentality.
I think we're going to have to respond to it, and I think we're going to have to play an extremely physical game.
In Game 4, he'd call up some help from Alan Peterson, Bob Beers, Nevin Marquardt, and Lyndon Byers. The quartet had combined for 7 goals on the season to go with 235 penalty minutes.
What do you think, I'm a goon? Well, it's because I got 830 minutes of penalties in 200 games. What does that consider? I mean, I get 29 goals. I get 2 goals this year. Don't pressure me.
Apart from a couple scrums, the plan didn't exactly work. Pittsburgh won 4 straight to take the series and would win another 4 to take home the franchise's first Stanley Cup. Throughout the series, Samuelsson got under Neely's skin, and a collision between the pair in Game 6 did damage to Cam's other leg, causing a thigh contusion. As the Penguins celebrated the cup, Neely's body reacted to the injury by ossifying the contusion, which means it began turning the muscle into bone. Neely dodged surgery and set his sights on the next time he'd see Samuelsson, where he wasn't necessarily going to give him a beating, but he'd like to. Don Cherry agreed that Samuelsson was due for a lesson sometime soon.
His day is coming, folks. Don't worry about it. It's just a matter of time, and I want to know who's going to be the hero.
Samuelsson, though, didn't understand why people were still talking about a hit from last season. His agent, who just so happened to also be Neely's, said that Ulf privately felt bad for what had happened to Cam and had asked about how he was doing. Neely ended up sitting out until January of that season, so his teammates looked to deliver payback on his behalf. Unfortunately for them, Samuelsson would miss all 3 games against Boston that year. When Neely did finally return, he scored 9 goals in 9 games, but was put back on the shelf and declared out for the season. To add insult to injury, Samuelsson and the Penguins would win their 2nd consecutive cup, beating Boston in 4 straight along the way. Neely would require 2 surgeries to his knee, but the good news was that he and Samuelsson finally shared the ice on March 27, 1993, and in the middle of the 2nd, had a chance to reconnect. Neely got ejected and felt far from satisfied with the turtling of his opponent, continuing to voice displeasure in Samuelsson not wanting to fight. He got a few punches in the following December and, more importantly, scored a goal while Ulf was on the ice. Samuelsson admitted that it was tougher to watch Neely score than some other player, and summed up their relationship pretty simply. That season, Cam netted 50 goals in less than 50 games. He'd also tear his MCL in March, as his legs continued to struggle to hold up for a full season. Samuelsson moved on to the Rangers for the 95-96 season, and while the rivalry followed for their first meeting, Neely would play his final game that February. He announced his retirement in the summer of '96. Doctors said that there was no connection between his run-in with Samuelsson and his latest ailments, but player and team weren't too convinced. He was just 25 years old when he collided with Ulf, and retired at 31, still making it clear that if Ulf was quicker to drop gloves, they likely would have put some of it behind them. As for Samuelsson, he kept going until 2001, well after the universe got even with him through the hands of Ty Domi. Hey, good job, Ty. If you enjoyed this video, I think you'd like our episode of Weird Rules about Rob Ray's fighting technique that forced the NHL to change their rules. Or here's another fantastic hockey beef. Subscribe to SB Nation, and we'll see you soon.